Do you have the opening statement?
The compensation is before.
Hey, Phil. Dan.
I didn't bring my agenda today. I rely on the screen here. So they have printed copy out front. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm just going to flow.
Yeah, I did not bring mine either today.
Okay, folks, it's time to get rolling. Good afternoon. Welcome to the November 2018 meeting of the Omaha Public Power District Board of Directors. Let's run through our list of housekeeping items. First and foremost, let's please silence our electronic devices. This regular board meeting will follow the agenda made available to the public upon entering the meeting. This meeting is streaming live on the internet at OPPD.com. Our regular board meetings have public comment periods on the agenda. Following board discussion on each pending matter, I will ask for public comment before bringing the matter to a vote. Also, prior to adjournment of the meeting, you'll have the opportunity to address or to comment on any other OPPD matters. If you wish to speak, please approach the microphone to your far left and state your name and address and state the name of any organization or person you are representing. Organizations should choose one representative to speak on their behalf so as to avoid repetitive commentary. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are a part of the official public record. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending at the discretion of the board. To assist you, we use, here. To assist you, we use a red, yellow, green light indicator to ensure each member of the public receives a consistent amount of time. Ms. Labs, to my far right, will signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when time is up. Please direct your comments to me, not to other board members or the executive team. I will either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or officer of the district. If you brought written materials, Ms. Labs will receive them on our behalf. Before we take the roll, safety briefing? Tim, will you go ahead with safety briefing? Yeah.
Sure, we do a safety briefing at OPPD as part of our commitment to safety. So you're in our auditorium area on our atrium level here at Energy Plaza. There are fire extinguishers just outside this door, kind of around the corner to the left and then to the right, right on the wall by the telephone. The AED and the first aid kit are one on top of each other. If you would go through the doors straight out this room here, they are in right before you go in the cafeteria. They're on the right-hand side, one on top of each other. Is anybody here certified in the use of an AED or in CPR? So obviously we have several certified folks. We will ask Rod if you would call 911 or our emergency number here at OPPD. The location of the tornado shelters, obviously with a big group like this, we would ask you to follow our security folks out in the manner in which you came into this room, and you would be escorted to a safe area. And the senior team would actually go to the call center, and the board would go to the call center area where it's also a secured area during storms. We would ask you not to use the elevators in case of a fire. And if we needed to exit this room and exit the building, we would actually exit in the same manner in which most of you entered. We would actually go down the steps and exit on the 16th Street side, just across from the Orpheum, and then you'll be directed to a location where we will all gather. As you go down the steps, we would ask you to use your 3-point touch. That's one hand on the railing and 2 feet on the ground and on the steps. And if you have a medical condition, if you could write it down or tell your neighbor, or if somebody goes out of this room coughing, we would ask someone to follow them out just to make sure that they're okay. With that, that concludes my safety briefing, unless there's any questions. And I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Okay, Christy, can we go ahead and call the roll?
Barrett?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Here.
Gay?
Here.
McGuire?
Here.
Mines?
Here.
Moody?
Here.
Trinan?
Here.
Yoder?
Here.
Agenda item 4, announcement regarding public notice of meeting. Notice of the time and place of this meeting was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald and outlets, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza since November 7, 2018, and by mailing such notice to each of the district's directors on that same date. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the open meetings law is available for inspection in the public meeting book located in this meeting room. Board consent action items. The consent agenda items are as follows. Item 5, approval of the September 2018 comprehensive financial and operating reports. October 11, 2018 board meeting minutes, and the November 15th, 2018 agenda. Item 6, Nebraska City 1 and 2 Best Furnace Cleaning Technology Materials, Resolution number 6282. Item 7, Spring 2019 Fiber Optic Ground Wire Installation, Resolution number 6283. Item 8, 2019 Board Meeting Schedule, Resolution number 6284. Item 9, Award Overhead Distribution Upgrade and Rebuild Projects, Resolution number 6285. If there are no correction, changes, or additions to these items, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do any board members care to comment on consent items 5 through 9?
No, I'm good. I do have I'm good, and maybe I wait till after the vote for the next item, but do we have the good contrast? Can you guys see this okay? It's kind of so-so.
I can't.
Okay. I'm just wondering if maybe we could improve the lighting back there.
You can see it.
If need be, I suppose we could turn down.
So we would be
We'll see
able
what
to
they're doing.
hit,
We'll
I
see what
believe,
they're
number
doing.
2 here when we get to a point on the presentation. Maybe if you can do that over here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, no other board comments on consent items 5 through 9. Do any members of the public wish to comment on numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9? Seeing no one, Christie, would you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Gay,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Mines.
Yes.
Moody,
Yes.
Trinan.
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Motion carried. Agenda item 10, corporate officer compensation, resolution number 6286. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District that the compensation adjustments for Vice Presidents Kate W. Brown, L. Javier Fernandez, Mary J. Fisher, and Martha L. Sedke are set forth on Exhibit A attached here to B and hereby are approved.
I'd make a motion to approve this.
Second.
A motion and a second. Tim?
Yeah, thank you. As chairman of the governance committee, we look at all the compensations, governance committee, and then as you all know, we discussed many of these in executive session. But as Christie says, required by law, this is one of those things we need to vote on publicly and go through. I'll turn this over to Tim Burke.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you very much, Director Gay. So the two individuals that have an effective December 1 compensation increase is both Mary Fisher and Mart Sedke, and I'll talk a little bit about their performance. Part of the compensation adjustment includes one, their merit, their performance, and how well they're performing in their role, but also some market adjustments because of some increased duties and accountability. So last year we had a senior manager who retired. We elected, as part of the executive team, not replace that individual, but combine two executive functions. Mary was the senior director of decommissioning at the time, reported directly to me, and John Hansen was vice president of production operations and energy marketing. And so we combined the decommissioning and production operations side to really get the synergies around our steam fitters, machinists, and electricians and operations around those business units, and to be able to really utilize those resources. And that's really come to fruition. It's been a really good decision, and Mary's done just an exceptional job of putting together a leadership team around that decision and began to execute that. When we moved her into that role last December, we had not market-based that position, and so we have done that, and it includes a market adjustment as well in that regard, with an expanded accountability and expanded range. Mary's been in her current role for a little over a year, really performing at a very high level. She's been part of our key decision process that has gone on here. Certainly some of the changes that have occurred in our integrated resource plan that has moved us to 40% of our retail sales coming from renewable energy, and obviously some of the work that led us up to moving to potentially 50% depending on other activities that may be going on here at this board and in future boards. She's been part of some of the tough decision-making too in the closure of Fort Calhoun Nuclear Station and the current decision the board will encounter today, which will be to move to decon and essentially begin to work with a contractor to start that deconstruction of Fort Calhoun a nuclear station. So she's been involved in some of those very critical discussions, is providing just exceptional leadership across the organization, including some of the organizational transformation that's going on. And so my recommendation is a merit increase after those market adjustments of 3%. Mart Sedke is our Vice President of Human Capital, and Mart really has developed some of our accelerated leadership development programs really from scratch, and some of our accelerated leadership development programs, her and her team from currently level 3, now our level 2 accelerated leadership development, our emerging leaders program, and obviously we're having conversations with our union partners on some crew leader training activity as well, which will be really important for us to continue. She has essentially reorganized and redeveloped our talent acquisition strategy, where we at least on a limited basis, do not use third-party recruiters. We do that all internally. And she's really built that up with her new direct report team on that talent acquisition, and we're really adding some very top talent at OPPD. Been very involved in hiring a new director of our benefits and compensation and rewards, and we're making some very important benefit changes to reduce cost, not only for our customer owners, but for our employees as well, as we begin to transition with some different benefit administration. And lastly, and I'll look for a thumbs up for a couple of our union leaders in the room, we have I think some of the best relationships that we've had with our union leadership over my 21 years here, and there's a great collaboration and cooperation, even as this organization is going through some pretty significant changes and transformation. She has also been leading our employee engagement opportunities here at OPPD, and even going through those kind of transformational changes and organizational changes that we're going through. We're continually seeing an increase, and as a team that's working very hard on increasing that employee engagement. She's been in her role for a little over 3.5 years and performing at a very, very high level. She's taken on a variety of community roles. So she's working with the Empowerment Network. She's working with the Chamber on a variety of talent and diversity and inclusion initiatives, which we hold very important to OPPD and our core values. The next two senior managers are Kate Brown and Javier Fernandez. So Kate, last year when we approved a merit increase for Kate, we did not include a pretty significant component of our building services function, including all of our physical security, some of the work that she's doing around all kind of cyber leadership activity, both information technology and operation technology. And if you've done any reading on cyber, many of the students probably have done that. That's really kind of an important integration. That's going to be important for us. She's really working hard with her team to reduce our technology debt and has developed a plan executing that. We're attracting, again, great talent, increasing our security initiatives. We're moving this position to a Chief Information Officer role, really to align with industry and the work that we do with Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and other national and industry experts as well. She's a strong communicator. That organization has gone through a significant amount of change as we began to kind of really mind shift the work that we're doing around technology. And she's taken on some very tough issues and is a great and key component of our senior management team. That recommendation is a merit increase after some of the market adjustment and adding some of those functions of 3%. Javier Fernandez and Kate has been in that IT role in this current role since January 1 of 2016. Javier, even though he's has a little over a year under his belt, he's been just an exceptional leader and has done a great job of picking leaders that report directly to him from within the organization. We've improved our financial auditing process, as the board is certainly aware of. We've really increased this role by adding our energy marketing and trading, and the board heard, and if you had the opportunity to listen to our committee meeting on Tuesday, you saw that some of the hedging and strategies that we had during times where after our tornado in Sarpy County on June 16th of 2017 took out around 6 transmission structures. That group was able to work on some derivative and some hedging opportunities to really not have us see the significant loss impact in the market. Really refurbished our resource planning doing and the work that we're doing around our senior team, around not only operating and cost resources, but capital and prioritization. Strong leader and a strong deliverer of service. He's taking on a variety of roles within the industry and is working on transitioning and taking on roles in the community as well. Pretty significant performance in the year and a half, and so this is really to recognize not only his performance over the last year and a half, but also the expanded duties that he has acquired over the last several months here. So with that, that's my quick assessment of these 4 executives. I'm pleased to recommend merit increases for each of them of 3%. Thank you.
Do any board members care to comment on this?
Yeah, I'd comment real quick. As I just discussed earlier, Tim gave great explanations of what's going on here and why. But I think the main thing that for me is everyone's assuming expanded duties. It's a great leadership team where they've met many of the goals that we've set. And so I don't personally have a problem with this. And I know, like I said, we've discussed this in exec session on each individual. So I think we've done our due diligence, and I'm going to support this.
Good.
Thanks.
And just to clarify, the Exhibit A to me is a little bit confusing. It looks like just a 3%, which is, I think, just the
merit component.
Just the merit component.
Just the merit component.
But these individuals do have different market components, percentages. Can you explain that?
Sure, exactly. So what we do is we benchmark not only local common roles and capabilities within the regional area, but we do it within the utility industry, and that's both regionally and nationally. And so each of their roles may have different ranges because it's compared to the jobs in the market that match up with their current accountabilities within the organization. So that would explain the difference of midpoints and midpoint percentages and what that may look like.
And at the proposed salary here, does that include the market?
It does. It includes the market. We did the market adjustment because of the expanded roles and because of some of the market changes that we've seen.
The 3% change and the market is in that proposed salary.
That's
just
correct.
To verify that.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So if I could follow up on that?
Go ahead.
So this exhibit shows up where publicly? This Exhibit A? Is that
This
put on-
Exhibit A will be shown after this meeting on our website.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
on
that's public
OPPD.com.
information. And to follow up on your comment, Director McGuire, the asterisk I see under current salary states that market adjustment is within that current salary value.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's absolutely correct.
So we have all seen, all the board members have seen what the current salary actually is versus this public information of the current salary plus the market adjustment. So when does the public see what the current salary actually is?
Well,
Just
here,
that
I'll just
versus
read
the-
it into the record. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Is
You've
that
got
what
the
you're
record.
asking?
Yeah.
It is
Yeah,
sort
I
of
think
confusing.
that's a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, that's no problem.
I don't know why they did
Kate Brown, her proposed salary that we'd be voting on is $337,581. That's 3%. Gets her to 94% of the midpoint. Javier Fernandez, $364,496, 3%. Gets him to 83% of the midpoint. Mary Fisher, $323,400, 3%, 88% of the midpoint. And Mark Sedke is $301,916, 3%, gets her to 94% of the midpoint. I would stress, just real quick, the midpoint is just what it says. It's a midpoint. When we did a salary surveys of other electrical utilities of our size and large Omaha business leaders. So we did a study last year. So that's the midpoint. Obviously, if we went to the high point, these would actually be much, much higher. So
Sure, yeah.
our goal is to try to get somebody at 94% of the midpoint. And then that may change as these midpoints change, so.
All good
that's
stuff.
what
Yeah,
we're voting
it all
on.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Go ahead.
And I see CEO Burke may be reaching for this information.
That's what we need.
I'm interested in learning what today's salary is.
Sure. So I'll talk about each of their market adjustments that we made based on the survey of other utilities, market relative positions. So on Mary Fisher, we had a market adjustment of that range of about 5. Actually, the range was greater than this. We're giving a market adjustment of 5.5% before the merit piece, which did not include last year the inclusion of the decommissioning accountability into the production operation side of the business. March Sedke, we included a market adjustment of 2%, primarily because of the changes and the performance that we're seeing in that role in creating some of the talent acquisition, the talent development, the engagement pieces, and the broader community activity that she'll be leading as well. And if the board would just allow me to flip just a couple more pages here, I'll get to that. Javier Fernandez had a market increase of 6%. That's including the increase of that energy marketing and trading component. That's a pretty significant component for us before the merit increase. And each of these individuals in the performance review had above expectations in their performance, not only within their leadership behaviors, but also within their key accountabilities, which is their business unit objectives as well. Kate Brown saw a market increase of 4.5%, and that was prior to the merit of 3%, and that's because of the expansion of the duties of our building services and increased security and cyber activity that's going on not only on the IT side, but on the OT side of the business as well. So hopefully that answers.
Yes, that does answer my question. And then this is the reading into the record, and we won't see this printed along with the other information. Is that correct?
No, we wouldn't, because it's really a market adjustment. But I appreciate the conversation around it.
Well, I guess one quick follow-up on the market adjustment. That would not happen without board approval.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But the whole point of the market adjustment is to try to get them to midpoint, which is like 50% of the average salaries. Is that?
Yeah, so the midpoint is really the market average salary.
Is a market average salary, and right now no one is at midpoint.
Mr. Chairman,
94%.
I just want to say, all the details aside, these are high-performing individuals. Their jobs are extremely difficult. They don't come in at 8 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock. No, they don't. They are dedicated, committed servants to the public, and they're well worth every single penny they're getting and more. Every one of them could leave OPPD and get higher-paying jobs elsewhere. We're just proud that they're part of this family and that we've got them on board. So all the minutia aside, I just want to compliment all 4 of these people on being terrific individuals.
I'll echo those concerns. And if I can point out too that all 4 of these folks are relatively new to the organization, not only in their current position, but new to the organization as well. So consequently, they probably aren't at the top end of their pay range, partly due to the fact that they're still somewhat new in the organization. So these raises are basically 2 parts, if you will. And the reason why I support it is if we just went with the second part, which would basically just keep pace with inflation and with their colleagues in the industry, these folks would never get to the higher end of what the job calls for. This adjustment in responsibilities also includes getting them closer to that 100% midpoint as well. I do support the increase as well. We're fortunate to have these folks. They're all hardworking and excellent performers, and I hope they stay here for a long time.
And last year we had an executive compensation. Actually, it was Mr. Mines that asked for it when he was in governance, to ask for an outside vendor to come in, an outside consultant, and look at our executive compensation. And they came up with the idea that, to keep up with the current salaries and everything. However, what we were lacking in was any type of incentives or bonuses. You'll notice we still have no incentives or bonuses. I think we might have one minor little thing? What is your one minor incentive that they might?
No, actually, we have no incentive or bonus. So
None?
we used to have car allowances, and those have been taken away. We used to have an additional kind of a medical, executive medical benefit piece. That's been going away. So the plan was our executives would be on the exact same medical plan that all the rest of the other 1,800 employees at OPPD would be on, and I think the senior team was pleased with that and thought it was important for us as we kind of move forward. So,
And contrary to any investor-owned type companies or anything like this, they don't get any $1 million bonus at the end of the year.
Stock option.
Or stock
Call a question?
options.
Well, Mark, did you have something? Yeah, chance.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I've had the privilege over the last year of working with each of these 4 individuals and the management team at large, and I've seen some really extraordinary accomplishments that have saved OPPD tens of millions of dollars based on their performance. I think this is richly deserved, and I wholeheartedly support it.
Two quick things. One, I would echo what most of my colleagues are saying. Exceptional team, and these 4 people are top-notch, deserve everything that they're getting. I will backtrack a little bit to the inquiry that Director Yoder made. I think we can depict and share this information a little bit better. Clearly, this is something that garners interest on the part of the public, what we pay these people, and I have no qualms about paying them what they're getting paid, by the way, but it took us a little while to figure out what it was, and I want to make sure that what we're sharing with the public is 100% crystal clear.
So noted. Thank you.
If I may,
Question.
about the merit?
There's a call for the
Call the
question.
question.
Is there a second to call the question?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to call the question.
Okay.
Christie?
Are there any questions? We have
So we vote to call the question first, right?
Cut off the
Public
beef.
comment.
want to cut off comment?
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
There's a question
Oh, I
down
have
there.
to take a vote to
Call the question.
Motion to call the question. There's a vote.
Call the question.
Voting on it,
Okay.
yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Gay.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Mines.
Yes.
Moody.
No.
Trinan.
Yes.
Yoder.
No.
Okay, motion carried.
Okay, the motion is passed to call the question. I'm going to refer to Mr. Bruckner. Does that include just board comment, or would that include public comment as well?
There has already been a vote to call the question, so now you would just proceed to vote on the resolution.
Thank you very much.
Hold on.
Yeah, public
No
comment.
public comment? We're
You
gonna
can have public comment on the overall resolution, if that's your question, but
That's- I'm
not
sorry,
on
yes.
not on the issue of calling the question.
I'm sorry, yes, I meant on the original resolution.
Yeah, it would proceed as normal with public comment on the resolution
We've just in
itself.
effect shut off board debate.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay, does any members of the public wish to comment on the resolution?
Nobody wants to hear me.
John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street, Omaha. I just have one question, which would be directed at the chair. When you refer to the midpoint, is that an average or is that the median?
Good question.
That was actually the median, I believe, right?
Median.
Because if you have someone making an exorbitant amount, that would obviously throw the average totally off. So the median would seem to be the fairest way and the more accurate.
Thank you for
I
the
think, John.
clarification. You had referred to it as the average, and I
That-
just wanted to.
Good point. Thanks, John. Okay, seeing no other comments, Christie, call the roll.
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Gay.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Mines.
Yes.
Moody.
Yes.
Trinan.
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay.
It wasn't hard, and I would have told you why if you gave me a chance.
Agenda item 11, recommendation to negotiate and enter into contract for decommissioning services at Fort Calhoun Station under decon process, resolution number 6287. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District as follows. 1, that the Board of Directors approves management's recommendation to conduct the decommissioning of FCS under the decon process utilizing an OPPD-led with contractor support contractual approach for the project. 2, that management is authorized and directed to complete negotiations and enter into a contract or contracts with a qualified contractor to pursue and complete the decommissioning of the Fort Calhoun Nuclear Station under the decon process as specified in applicable regulations of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission with the contract or contracts to be reviewed and approved by the district's general counsel. And 3, that management shall report to the board upon completion of the contract or contracts for this project.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Tom, do you want to take it, or?
Oh, we're going to do a quick presentation if that's okay. Oh, yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Director Baird, would you mind if I kind of do an introduction? So I'll do a quick introduction. Tim Euling is really responsible for the decommissioning work that's going on at Fort Calhoun. As I spoke before, he reports directly to Mary Fisher, our Vice President of Production Operations and Nuclear Decommissioning. We have shared this with the board in quite a bit of detail, and we've had conversations at the committee level. That's been obviously also publicized as well. And so this is just an opportunity to the public to really see kind of the thought process we have around the nuclear decommissioning and the work that we want to do in obtaining a contractor to support us on that work over the next 10 years. So with that, Mr. Euling, I'll let you get going.
Thank you and good afternoon. Tim Euling, Senior Director, Decommissioning at Fort Calhoun Station. I'm here today to update the board on the progress we've made in the evaluation of which decom methodology that we should undertake based upon what we've learned over the last several months. We started out looking at 4 different options. The first option, the OPPD lead option, was eliminated early in the process, and that's really due to our lack of experience in large-scale deconstruction. The next 3 options we continue to evaluate further. Option Bravo there, B, the OPPD led with a contractor, is an opportunity for OPPD to lead the effort, to make the major decisions, to use the skills and experience of our Fort Calhoun's personnel with the skills and experience a contractor would bring with decommissioning experience. Option C, or Charlie, is the contractor-led option. Under that version, we would turn over the license and the project to a contractor. Once the work was done, the fuel responsibility would be returned to OPPD. And then the last one is similar, that the work would be turned over along with the license to a contractor, but at the end of the project, the contractor would maintain responsibility and liability for the used fuel. As we look at those options, all 3 of them bring a lot of similar benefits to us, benefits over Safe Store that reinforce what we believed as we entered into this evaluation. They provide cost certainty. They reduce the costs, as we'll show on a graph later on. Those things help reduce our long-term financial liability and risk. Ultimately, going into decon now gets rid of that uncertainty around decommissioning. The radiological materials are able to be removed from site sooner. We have a place to take them. We have a storage facility that they can be sent to, and we know what those costs would be, as opposed to 2 or 3 decades from now when those costs and availability may change. And in the end, it enables early release of the site for its next use. There are some distinct differences, though. The first one bullet and the third bullet really go together. The license. Who maintains the license? Under an OPPD led with contractor support version, OPPD maintains that license with the NRC. Under the other options, that license is transferred to a contractor. With that license comes the responsibility of the project, making sure that it's done safely. And that is the key piece of where that decision will be made. If we maintain the license, OPPD would make those decisions. If a contractor has the license, they will make those decisions. There's difference in the flexibility of the financial commitment as well under each of these methods. Under an OPPD scenario, we can control the spend from 1 year to the next within reasonable bounds based on acceleration or deceleration of the project as necessary. That commitment or that flexibility is not necessarily there in some of the other options. One of the key pieces here also is the timing of the impact on OPPD personnel. Each one of those methods and each one of the contractors has a slightly different version of what that impact would look like, the timing of it, and the magnitude of it. The last 2 bullets I would put together, external intervention potential and public perception. Under the OPPD-led option with contractor support, we continue to have these public meetings and forums for the public to interact with the district and let their voice be known as it comes to deconstruction. If that license is transferred, it opens up that discussion to individuals outside of our service area for them to comment on it as well. So it's a much bigger audience at that point. So if I was to summarize these options, option A is the one that we eliminated. It's the singularly OPPD-led option, eliminated due to lack of experience in this area. On option B, OPPD led with the contractor. We maintain control of the project, we make the key decisions, we decide how the site's gonna be used. It combines our site-specific expertise with that of the decommissioning contractor, who would share in the risk and reward of the project with us. Options C and D are very similar. Option C, the license is transferred to the contractor for the duration of the project. They have full control of that project. Public relations, community relationships, decision, project performance, and regulatory interface is all on their shoulders. Option D has all of those same components, except that the difference is in the end, the contractor would maintain the responsibility for the fuel, and it would remain on site until there was a option for removal. One of the key pieces that we had talked about as we decided to make the decision to go from safe store to decon is the cost component. This graph really for me helps visualize the difference in the financial aspect of these two decisions. The orange is the decon scenario. The blue is the safe store scenario. The bars are the annual spend and they go to the axis on the left. The lines are total spend and they go to the axis on the right. This not only shows the impact on inflation, but it shows the impact of the timing of the expenses. And that large chunk in the middle where you only see blue lines, that's really what just makes the difference between safe store and decon. We have those expenses of maintaining the site during that period of safe store when those buildings are just sitting there. There's still expenses associated with them. So where are we at? What's our progress? We have looked at each of the options with recognized decommissioning contractors. Those evaluations have included cost. So what's the cost to go do this project? The funding requirements, how much additional funding would we have to put into our trust fund to complete this work? What's the impact of the personnel? And then risk. Risk looks across a wide spectrum of items. It's project risk, it's cost risk, it's regulatory risk, it's environmental risk, lots of quantitative things to go along with the cost and funding aspects. So where did we get to? First of all, the proposals confirm that decon methodology provides financial benefits above safe store. So it confirms what we thought as we entered into this evaluation. And funding for each one of these options is within the previously planned safe store funding scenarios as well. So those are all positives. And when you get right down to it, the three options that we evaluated, options B, C, and D, are all viable alternatives. And that shouldn't come as a surprise. Each one of these options has been, is being, or will be used at a site across the country. For each site as they go into decommissioning, they have to understand their priorities, their needs, what's important to them, and contrast that against the methodologies and what those provide. Based upon our needs, our priorities, we are ready to make a recommendation that we move forward with the OPPD-led with contractor support option. Furthermore, that we request the board approve the negotiation and award the contract based upon this methodology. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move it.
Do we already have a second on a motion?
Second.
Oh, I guess we can.
Yeah, we have a second. So we can discuss.
Any discussion? We already had a motion discuss and second.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
Yep. Yeah, what's that discussion?
Anyone care to have comment on this resolution?
I have a comment.
Yeah, we're coming, yeah.
As we look at this, we're going to vote on this, as this got me thinking of what we just did prior. But part of the reason, I mean, you get to make these decisions. Several of us are on the board to shut the Fort Calhoun station down. It's a tough time to do that. Now we've got to make another critical decision on now what do we do. So when I looked at this, and I appreciate Tim and the whole team giving us the rundown. This is probably the third or fourth time we've heard this. I feel a lot more comfortable with the recommendation as us leading it at OPPD led with the contractor support. But part of the reason I say that is we have seen over the years of our own employees doing a lot of great work up there, and that really gives me a lot more comfort to do this. You've proven you can do it. The employees have proven it's been unbelievable watching that. So anyway, I plan on, of course, supporting this. But like I say, kudos out to the team because this deals with everybody. I mean, the finance and you know, folks at Fort Calhoun, the whole team that we just talked about. So anyway, I feel you know, it's unfortunate you got to spend this kind of money, but the way this was set up and the way I think we can do a great job doing this, that's kudos to you guys to give us the confidence to have this OPPD led. So I just want to get that in the record.
And we would have to do this regardless at some point in time, right? So I think that's really important, and the recommendations the board has seen over the last several months is a recommendation along with this recommendation that would really reduce that overall cost by about $200 million. And that's what's really driving us to really make this decision to accelerate that and then be able to use that property and that site for other valuable purposes, whether that's OPPD purposes or other economic development related purposes as well.
You know, and the other reason why we're doing it is because of our employees. You know, a couple years ago when we decided to go into Safe Story, we wanted to see, well, how does this work? There's a lot of other decommissioning units right now that are going on that have not had a great time doing this, and they've had a lot of problems. We have a nuclear decommissioning oversight committee that comes quarterly. We hire them. They're outside professionals who are experts in decommissioning. And they were just here last month. And Wayne Norton, who was he's in charge of the decommissioning chair, he said, you know, he sort of summed everything up after a 2-hour discussion, and they really tear everything apart and look at everything. He says, you know, there's great project organization. It's very impressive. It's good integration with Energy Solutions, which is working with Energy Solutions now, so our employees can work with other vendors, which is important. And they also pointed out, you know, he says, the only thing we can say is, you know, keep up the good work, and this is really amazing. This is phenomenal because we don't see this at other places. We haven't seen, they said you are #1 right now in the country as far as your performance in this right now. And just, you know, continue on, you know, make sure, you know, you continue on as that and everything. And I said, this is the employees. And this is why I really like the employee led with, you know, OPPD led with the contractor, because I have full confidence that they can do a great job.
Just a quick comment and a couple questions. Fully agree that this is the right approach. The second, third alternatives that relied more heavily on vendors were not even close when we thought about stacking these things up. So our team has done a phenomenal job, and I'm excited to have them at the helm leading this forward. It's been exceptional work thus far. The analysis has been great, and I'm really excited for us to take the lead on it. We're essentially being asked to approve the fact that we're going to do the OPPD-led scenario, and we're also being asked to delegate to management the responsibility for directly negotiating and awarding the contract. So I'd like to just better understand what management's plan is in terms of bringing back to us and keeping us in the loop as you go through that negotiation process.
You bet.
It's a big contract, big dollar amount, nuclear waste. I want to make sure that we understand what that process will look like.
Sure, our intent, we would anticipate this, and I'll ask Mary to add any of her thoughts after I get done here, but we would anticipate this being a relatively long negotiating process.
Okay.
This is a big contract that we want to make sure we understand all the risks and all the benefits of the contract for the district and the impact to the site and the timing of the site and all of those elements around that. And so in that regard, our intent would be to provide a board, a briefing on a monthly basis. And because it's in the negotiating space, we would probably do this in a closed space, in a closed session, because of the confidentiality nature and the negotiation with the contractors and the manner in which we go about doing this. But our intent would be to bring that to the board on a monthly basis, and as we do that, bring kind of the final term sheet to the board, so you have the opportunity to see the work that we've done and how that we've done that, how we begin to lay that out, and how we've really protected the interest of our customer owners, and really begin to lay the plan to decommission and deconstruct Fort Calhoun Nuclear Station.
Okay. On Tuesday, I expressed, at least I'll call it reservation, maybe not concern, but reservation about the board not actually taking action on approving that contract. Through conversation with Mr. Bruckner, our attorney, and through that explanation, I'm much more comfortable with where we're at. So
Yeah, and on previous big contracts like this, I think you've actually brought the results in the reporting item just to report it at the board meeting.
Oh,
We've actually
absolutely.
discussed
We'll
it
come
at
back
the
and
board
report.
meeting publicly. It won't only be at the committee meeting on the
Correct.
Tuesday.
Yep.
It'll be at the actual board meeting too.
Yep. And to your point, there's precedence for
Right.
this sequence of events, so, okay.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing this up too, by
Yeah,
the way,
it's
because
important.
it is very important, because, I mean, we own it, and we're making this decision, and of course, they'll do a good job reporting back, but also, as new members become on the board,
Yeah.
they'll get up to speed on what's going on as well, because, yeah, very few times do you get to make these big decisions, and it's good to have that, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do any members of the public care to comment on this resolution before it goes to a vote?
Laverne Train, 49 Chicago. On option C and D, do you turn over the license to the property or the ownership of the property when you give them the license? Or do you still own the property on those two?
On C and D?
Yeah.
So on C and D, we would negotiate that we would receive the property back and be able to utilize the property in a manner that would value OPPD and our customer owners. So that's how we would look at C and D. But there's the specific license transfer that would occur where we would no longer be involved in that activity. It would be the contractor's accountability to be able to do that. And I think the senior team and the decommissioning leadership, as well as the board in this example, really believe we have to maintain ownership through that whole process and accountability for that work that's going to go on up there. We feel very strongly about that.
I agree. Decon, B.
Alan Vovoka, 3719 Hamilton. I've spoken in favor of decommissioning in the past, and I'd like to address the OPPD-led portion of the effort. I think that's very important. We heard just a few minutes ago a high-level summary of Vice President Fisher's qualifications and performance in that role, and I would personally feel much more confident in a decision that she made than a decision some contractor made. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Okay, seeing no other comments, Christie, call roll.
Barrett?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Gay?
Yes.
McGuire?
Yes.
Mines?
Yes.
Moody?
Yes.
Trinan?
Yes.
Yoder?
Yes.
Motion carried. Agenda item 12, resolution of appreciation, Mohammed I. Dogman, resolution number 6288. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District, at a meeting duly convened on the 15th day of November 2018, desires to publicly acknowledge the important contributions of Mohammed I. Dogman and to express its gratitude for the commitment, integrity, and pursuit of excellence consistently demonstrated during his years of service. Be it further resolved that a suitable inscribed copy of this resolution be presented to Mohammed I. Dogman upon his retirement to serve as a constant reminder of the sentiments expressed herein.
All right.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second.
Yep.
Tim, did you want to give it to Mr. Burke?
Yeah, I'll turn it over to the.
So I get to be the first one to talk about this because then they won't let me talk about it afterwards, Mo. So it could be lucky. Now, let me just talk a little bit about Mo's history here at OPPD. On March 1st of 1989, Mr. Dogman joined the District Substation Engineering Division as a principal substation engineer after a stint down in Kansas City with another consulting engineering group. He became the manager of substation in June of 2003 and became a division manager in April of 2006, which I believe I hired you as a division manager of 2006, and you were named Vice President of Energy Delivery and our Chief Compliance Officer on February of 2010. And now Mo is in a position where he's going to retire December 1, 2018, and so it's kind of bittersweet. It's bitter for us because we're losing a long time, just exceptional employee that has done some great work here at OPPD. I'll just give you some of the accomplishments that I'll talk about here. One is he's really moved our NERC compliance performance to some of the highest levels in the nation. to let you know that, where we have to, we are now in a position where we identify our own issues and concerns and then can fix them versus having others have to come in and be able to do that. That's pretty significant and substantial to be in that position, and a lot of that had to do with Mo's leadership in that area as well. And NERC is the North American Electric Reliability Council, and they're responsible for national reliability across all of the energy grid across the United States. Mo has been great, probably in his career, probably has built more transmission and been responsible for more transmission projects than anybody prior to him. He did a 186-mile line from Kansas City into our Nebraska City plant area. We're still working on our Sarpy County transmission project, but he certainly was involved deeply on the front end of that. And then our Elkhorn Valley transmission project that connected Blair and or near Blair and Fremont, which not only improves the reliability for us in our region, but also improves the reliability for the city of Fremont. And that's been done with very little fear or concern. Did a great job of serving customers, and we continually look for ways to improve that, and Mo has been greatly involved in that. You know, we have some of the highest reliability indices in the United States. We're certainly in the top quartile of our high reliability, and we continually have initiatives to drive that reliability as well. And one of the items that you may not think about in this role, but outside of that role on our energy delivery side, Mo was instrumental when our Fort Calhoun Nuclear Station went into Manual Chapter 0350. That's a performance area that no nuclear plant wants to be in, but he was very involved in developing the GOSP and the principles and the practices, and many weekend and Saturday and evening meetings to begin to bring that plant back up to some of the top quartile performance that it was before we decided to shut it down for economic reasons. And so, Mo, that commitment to that kind of work, along with the Fort Calhoun staff, was just instrumentally done, and done at incredibly high quality, actively involved in the community, and is just a great representative of OPPD. The bitter side of this, too, is that now he's going to be a really critical customer of us. So, and now he knows everything. So that's good. But Mo, we wish you the best, and to Mary as well, and have a wonderful retirement. And thank you for your great service, and thanks for living out our core values of passion to serve, honoring our community, and caring for each other. So thank you.
Mo, on behalf of the board, congratulations on a great career. Thank you for all your help and your service. Someone mentioned earlier about the job not being a 9-to-5 job sometimes, or 8-to-5 job, and many times we could depend on Mo, calling him at night, various outages, something was going on. Mo was always on top of it. If he didn't have the answer right then, he'd have it shortly, and I always appreciated that very much. Again, congratulations and thank you.
Well, I'll just speak to his commitment. The last little ice storm that we had in October, middle of October, he was taking some time off as he moves to this retirement area, and he came in to assist our new Vice President of Energy Delivery, Troy Vai, and so he was right there on that Sunday night, if I'm not mistaken, till late. So we appreciate that commitment. So thank you.
I actually got to know Mo quite well the past few years. The first time I ever met Mo when he just became a vice president, and I sort of wanted to meet him. And I said, Mo, I know you're really good at T&D. Could you sort of explain it to me just in a simple way? Everybody else, nobody's been able to do that. He sat down with me for about 2.5 hours and gave me the best lecture on transmission and distribution and how everything is going off the straight, how everything goes and how you buy and sell energy and everything else in 2.5 hours. Ask me if I remember it all. Don't grade me now. I'd have to ask him. But he's a great teacher. And then after the flood, the infamous flood at Fort Calhoun, Mo was brought on, as Tim mentioned, to do a lot more things there. And it was not only 6 days, I know it was some 7 days. And I know Mary did not see him most of that time. And it was many 12 hours, sometimes even much, much longer many, many longer hours that he worked with everything, and I want to really thank Mary for that. I realized that it was a great sacrifice for your whole family, Mary. And Mo, it was a very, very trying time, and you did a great job. And you know, were in charge of nuclear oversight at that time. You dealt with all the hassles behind that. And I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate Mary and your entire family during that time.
Yeah, I'd like to say, Mo, 6 years working together, and I agree with Director McGuire. As far as an educator, you should be an educator because I asked you a lot of questions, and you're always very professional and just trying to explain it to me what's going on. I really appreciate that. But also the many late nights. I mean, I can't imagine over your career how many times you've had to take these calls, and like others in OPPD, of course. But I always appreciate when I'd call you up and say, hey, I got what's going on? And you're so quick to get back. And I know not just with me, with everyone else, but I appreciate that. And by the way, we get no favoritism on when the power is out. So.
No, we don't.
but
no, we don't. They make sure.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, we're always
anyways,
the last ones.
you just the consummate professional. And I wish you the best of luck in retirement. And I know you just never quit wearing that orange tie. OPPD orange. We do, and by the way, I know others might want to say something, but we do have a nice plaque here we would like to give present to Mo.
Sounds good. As soon as everyone's done talking, we can do that. So.
Congratulations, Mo.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Mo. He came here from Lebanon and went to the University of Nebraska. He's a Cornhusker at heart, and he stayed here. Just a phenomenal employee. He's a pleasure to be with. You're just a true super person, intelligent. You got your MBA, and you've done a lot for public power. So I thank you for it. And so to the students, where are you guys from? Creighton? Yeah. Okay. And what class is it? Environmental Studies. Okay, Environmental Studies. That's great, but just remember all these people that we've talked to and these salaries that we discussed, they all went into postgraduate work. So just put that into your plans. So don't give up after 4. Keep on going. MBA, JD, MD.
They worked a lot more than 40 hours a week.
So you'll
so
be
if you want
rewarded
quality
at the
of
end.
life, I don't know.
So thank you, Mo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just a quick comment, Mo. So I appreciate the opportunity to have worked with you and to know you. I appreciate your professionalism and your ethics. Thank you so much for the time you've given.
So, Mary, you guys want to join us over here for a quick picture? Michael? Okay.
We have to vote, yeah.
Where are your kids?
Yeah, we're taking care of kids. They're all working.
Taking care of
don't
I'll let you guys get in the middle. How does that sound?
You know,
You should hold it.
what are we going to go with? Are we all going?
Mo and I share a love of Lebanese food.
No, it's just a chair. Got it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're next to me. You'll be fine.
Thanks.
Then I think we'll vote.
We have to vote yet,
Yes,
right?
yep.
Oh, we should
There
vote.
We have to vote.
Yes. Oh.
Any members of the
Public
public care to comment on Mo's recognition?
I got to know Mo when he did the nuclear oversight. You know, I'm obviously one of the passionate ones for the bringing down the plant. He was wonderful, always joyful. Look at the grin on his face now. Just a lovely person to be around, and you know, and help keep tempers down and help keep the passions focused. So it's great. Thanks, Mo.
He robbed me of the opportunity.
Okay, Christie?
Barrett.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Gay.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Mines.
Yes.
Moody.
Yes.
Trinan.
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Couldn't get a pass. We're going to give him the plaque.
I know.
Agenda item 13,
Could have been
SD7, Environmental Stewardship Revisions, Resolution number 6289. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District that the revisions to the Board Policy SC7 Environmental Stewardship be and are hereby approved, effective November 15th, 2018, as set forth on Exhibit B attached hereto.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Ann?
We don't have an amendment?
No,
Not yet. Okay. Well, this has been a journey. I explained this to somebody as that it's always been, it was a healthy tension in this discussion about environmental stewardship. It began well over a year ago last summer when we recognized that this was need drastic changes. And then starting in April of 2018, the committee began work on this. We've put, as I said, and if many of you listened to the past 2 or 3 months, we've discussed this. And we put many, many hours in, and all of, the majority of the administration of the vice presidents have been at all of our meetings. We really wanted that ideal thing of absolutely a carbon-free environment right away. And we were sort of brought to the realism that that really probably isn't going to happen right now. And then the next step was, how can we push you as much as possible to get there? And we asked for their knowledge, which we necessarily did not have, as far as running power plants, as far as delivering reliable energy. And they came back with specific suggestions for us. We again, and the healthy tension, said, are you sure? Can't we do something better than that? And they went back to the drawing board again and came back again. And each time, though, it was about the same thing. Mary Fisher, I have to acknowledge you. Thank you very much for all your help. Javier, thank you for all your help as far as the financials with this. Many, many other people. Lisa, you were there. Who else was there? Julie, was everybody? Pardon? Scott. Well, Scott's at the very end. Scott's our peacemaker. At least he tried to be a peacemaker in all of this. So we have this written. I don't know if we should actually say what it is, but in the end, we decided that what we really wanted, we pushed them on the carbon. And they looked back and they felt that perhaps for us the best thing was Obama's carbon plan, which was a 20% reduction in carbon intensity from 2010 to 2030, as measured by the Climate Registry Electric Power Sector Protocol is what we put in there for that. But as far as the 20% reduction in carbon intensity, we asked for stakeholder process, and you came back. Thank you. We listened. Each month we listened. There were more stakeholders who responded to this than ever before, and we appreciate that. And that shows the passion that everyone has about this. And I will tell you that the staff has that same passion. I have a quote back in the July meeting. I do take a lot of notes from Mary Fisher, and she says, what everyone here, what we and Mary as the vice presidents and Mary and all of her group, what we want to do is strive to meet the minimal environmental footprint that we can. And we said, okay, Mary, what is this? And that's when she came out with the 20% carbon intensity view. We came back and a lot of people wanted 100% retail energy sales. And that's a very fluid number, 100% retail sales as far as renewable energy, because if our load increases, then all of a sudden it might not be realistic. So then we again came back to Mary and her group and Javier and everything else, and they felt that 50%, even though you think that might be easy now, we expect to have more load in the next few years, and it's going to be harder and harder to get. But I think this is something that can always change in the next year or two or three. There's going to be a lot of new things that will come about. Right now, we don't have the physical plants or the means to achieve 100% renewable or zero carbon. But that doesn't mean that we're not looking at that at all times. At this, I might have other people make some comments.
Okay, does anyone else care to comment on this resolution?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments. So first, I want to some thank yous to Director Gay and Director McGuire on the Public Information Committee, the committee that handled most of this. Thank you for your conversations, for your candor, for your dedication to this. I appreciate it.
You're also in the committee too, so thank you.
Yes. Director Kavanaugh attended some of those, and I'd also like to personally thank Director Yoder for his expertise, his thoughtful review, and for asking really hard questions.
And his multiple emails and information, which I read.
Thank you.
As Director McGuire said, the entire management team was virtually present at all of these conversations, so thank you for your patience as well. I hesitate to do this, but I would call out Scott, Mary, Javier, and Russ Baker as well. They were fun conversations, and I think they were really important conversations, so thank you for your patience. And as Director McGuire said as well, thanks to everyone that submitted comments. They were read, they were listened to, they were read multiple times. Thanks to those of you that are in the room today. That's really, really important engagement, and I was highly impressed with the extent to which people were engaged in it. I next want to acknowledge the exceptional work that's already occurred on our environmental efforts. I remember I was at Earth Day probably 10 years ago, hassling whoever was at the table for OPPD at the time about what the plans were to continue the transition or to start a transition on renewable energy. And I remember him saying, we're going to get to 10% by 2020. That was the big goal at the time. And it's important to acknowledge the fact that we're going to be at 40% sometime next year, a year ahead of where we thought we were going to be at that time. I think that's a reflection of the work that's gone into this already within the organization. It's a reflection of what's happened in the marketplace as well. So I don't, a lot of times I think in some of our conversations, whether they were our committee meeting or larger, we forget to mention that we've made some really exceptional progress already. And I don't want to forget that. I want to acknowledge that. Okay, next. We've had some conversations as a board about the perspectives of our customers. And so I want to talk just a little bit about that. The first thing that I want to mention is there were several organizations that provided comments to us that even though it's one comment because it's one letter, it represents, in some cases, thousands and thousands of people. So those organizations quickly include the Nebraska Wildlife Federation, the Sierra Club of Nebraska, the Green Omaha Coalition, Nebraskans for Peace, the Nebraska chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council, the Omaha Area Higher Education Sustainability Alliance, which includes Creighton, UNO, UNMC, MCC, College of St. Mary, and Bellevue University. Omaha Together One Community, Nebraska Interfaith Power and Light, and of course, last but not least, Nebraska Taxpayers for Freedom. So there was a high level of engagement, and all but one of those were advocating for us to continue this migration towards reducing carbon and towards higher levels of renewable energy. The other thing that I'll mention as it relates to the perspectives of our customers, a couple data points. I think data is important. In 2011, the City of Omaha completed a comprehensive energy management plan. As part of that plan, they hired a marketing and research firm to survey Omahans. And here's what they found, and this is 2011. I think we've made progress since then. Number one, Omahans are willing to pay more for renewable energy. 93% of respondents were willing to pay at least 50 cents more per month. 50% were willing to pay $10 or more per month. And this includes 38% of the GOP, 54% of independents, and 59% of Democrats. This was in 2011. Overall, the survey, this is a quote from the survey, it demonstrates a wellspring of affection for renewable sources of energy and respondents were open to a number of policies and individual actions which could contribute to increasing the use of these alternative energy sources. I'll stop there. There are a couple other perspectives that I want to share with you. The Yale Program on Climate Communication conducted a survey in 2018, and of the percentage of respondents that support regulating CO2 as a pollutant, 74% of Nebraskans support that. When you break that down by county, 77% of Douglas County, 74% of Sarpy, 71% of Washington, and 73% of Cass. It's not just a liberal Democrat issue. Those that feel that local elected officials should do more to address global warming. 52% of Nebraskans support that, which means 55% in Douglas, 50 in Sarpy, 48 in Washington, 49 in Cass. A couple other data points. The University of Nebraska conducted a Rural Perspectives on Climate Change, and we represent rural people. This is in 2013. The majority of Nebraskans, that being 70%, agree or strongly agree that we will have to change our lifestyles to reduce energy consumption. 6 in 10 rural Nebraskans agree or strongly agree that we will need to do something in their lifetimes to deal with the adverse effects of global climate change. And 1/2 of rural Nebraskans think that we need to do something right now to deal with the adverse effects of global climate change. So it's not a city of Omaha liberal issue. This is a survey of rural Nebraskans. So the point in bringing some of this up is that I've heard from at least a few people that that people don't care about this, and the data doesn't support that. The data actually shows that there's broad agreement to differing levels about making a continued transition to renewable energy. Okay, so specific to this SD and some of the changes that we've made, and I want to kind of reflect back some of the comments that we've received and acknowledge that a lot of people said a lot of things. So one is that there was a desire for additional metrics, for us to include other metrics in there other than just carbon emissions and percent renewable energy. The point being, environmental stewardship is a highly complicated issue. It covers all manner of things, and I fully agree with that. My view is that when I think about OPPD, I'm more focused on what is our true impact? What is the biggest thing that we're doing? And to me, that's carbon emissions. And so in my view, I'm comfortable with not including all those other metrics. We know for certain that we have been tracking them, and we're going to continue to track them, and those will be reported back to us as a board on an annual basis. So that's a good point at which we can take a look at that. Second issue is with the actual metric itself. This is where we spend a lot of time talking about carbon intensity, and I do agree that the environment doesn't care what our carbon intensity is. The environment cares what our total emissions are. Valid point, 100% agree. I also, carbon intensity in some ways sort of sends mixed signals, and when I think about that, I'm mostly thinking about energy efficiency. To me, I think one of the important roles that we as a utility can play is helping our customers be more energy efficient. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see an improvement in that metric. The other factor is as the utility plays a more active role in helping our customers pursue things like rooftop solar, the same issue exists. So there are flaws with that metric. I also think that other utilities aren't necessarily looking at that metric in and of itself. They're looking at total emissions and looking at what they're producing, but the extent to which the industry is really meshing those two things together is a concern. And then the last thing that I would say about the concerns with SD7 is we originally didn't have the percent of retail renewable in there. We got a lot of comments that said we should really include that. We brought it back in. I'm fine with that. I fully understand why we wanted to do that. To me, it's about outcomes rather than activities, and percent of retail that's renewable is an activity that leads you towards carbon reduction. A couple more things.
Craig, let's try to wrap up.
A couple more things.
Okay, you've been a member of the committee. You've had the opportunity numerous times to voice your concerns, and we appreciate that. Let's try to kind of wrap it up, okay?
A couple more things. I was at a lecture a couple days ago. Dr. Donald Brown, who is an author of a book about climate change ethics, made a very compelling argument for policymakers making decisions more so on ethics than we make on things like cost-benefit analyses and data and hard facts. So in other words, the question is really, what is the higher level objective that we're trying to achieve as policymakers? And to me, one of the things that we should be striving towards, which is what I've advocated for and I would continue to advocate for, is, to your point, a long-term goal to be zero carbon. That's not where we're at today. That's not what the SD has. But to me, and I've said this before, that's really where I want to go longer term. There are two issues at that we've talked about. One, we don't know how to get there today. Fully agree with that. But my expectation is not that we get there tomorrow, but to me, setting that long-term signal is important. The other comment that I would make is that we've talked about the potential impact on employees, and that's not something that we can ignore. That connects to the ethical concerns, right? There's no doubt that as we make that transition, our employees will be affected, and we need to be focused on how we help them make that transition over the course of a long time. 2 more paragraphs, and then I'm done. With all of that said, I'm proud of the way in which we've approached totally rewriting the strategic directive, and I believe it is a marked improvement over the previous version. I'm proud of the fact that we're talking about carbon emissions and that our conversations are thoughtful and tough and mixed with equal parts practicality and future thinking. But we must continue to wrestle with the challenges we face, for it's not an understatement to say that we have an opportunity to solve one of the world's biggest, most complicated challenges. We could play a leading role in helping humanity transition to an economy that is economically and reliably fueled by clean, not emitting fuel sources. It is the challenge of our lifetimes, and I can think of no better organization and no better people to tackle the challenge. And I look forward to working together with my fellow board members, with OPPD's management team, and with all of OPPD's exceptional people to embrace that opportunity and solve the problem.
I have some comments. Yeah. Notice how fast I was on that. There are two, Director Barrett asked during Tuesday's committee meeting, you know, what my problem was with SD7 as it exists, as proposed, I'm sorry. And so I've got two. One is that I feel a policy on environmental stewardship must have within it a measure of environmental impact. It has to address our impact on the environment. And I don't think it does. And then the second is that I think we, the board, have a duty to ensure honest reporting of OPPD activity, making sure that, as Director Moody said earlier today, we are crystal clear with the measures that we provide and the information that we provide. So why does environmental impact matter? I'm going to give you a couple of examples. About a week ago, some of you may have seen in the news that the First National Bank was evacuated, right? Had 2,000 people leave the building because 25 were transported to metro area hospitals after an irritant got into the air inside, right? It began, according to KETV, reporting on the Omaha Fire Department, that the incident began with a call for a party having difficulty breathing. So what do? They just take it outside and then it stays in there? No. You need to bring in outdoor air to clean it up. This is what mechanical engineers who deal with heating, ventilation, and air conditioning do. They have to judge the cleanness of the outdoor air when doing any ventilation design for any building, including this one, right? So you have to have clean air. So the reason solution to pollution is dilution in some cases for the kids out in the audience today. Our outdoor air in Omaha is less clean because of the Omaha Public Power District. It is the largest emitter with single emitter within the county, and it pollutes the air, if you judge by the TRI emissions, 5 times more than all the other TRI emitters combined. So when we have a bad air day, it's going to be because of OPPD. And who does that affect? It affects, why does it matter? It affects sensitive populations first. If you look at the air quality index, the ones that it affects first are the people it always affects, right? The old folks, the young, veterans who've been exposed during the Vietnam War or during the Gulf War, to burn pits. Those are the people that get hurt first, but they're just, pardon the phrase, the canary in the coal mine, right? They're the ones who have it happen to them first. If we were to allow OPPD to emit more pollutants, and these aren't not carbon, we're talking about SOx and NOx, nitrous oxides. We're talking about hazardous air pollutants, VOCs, particulates. If more pollutants are emitted, if emissions go up, then we all have to deal with it. As the air quality goes down, those engineers decide how much ventilation to put into a building based on the air quality that's in the city. And so if that air quality is worse, they have to put in more air, which means more fans running, which means more filtration and more expense for anybody that owns or lives or works in a building. So it affects us all if we have a measure that allows for increased emissions. And that's what we have right now. Carbon intensity allows us to emit more carbon emissions. We don't have anything talking about carbon emissions or limiting that. And so this goes to the second point, that we have honest reporting. We have to speak honestly to the people who elect us that carbon intensity and all the emissions that are associated with that, when we talk about it on a per kilowatt hour, megawatt hour, would allow us to ballyhoo and say how great we're doing as that intensity goes down while our emissions still go up. I find that ambiguous at best. Okay? So there's another thing with the pollutants. Going back to the first element, the environmental impact. For years, and some of you haven't been around for years, the City of Omaha, MAPPA, many different organizations have been supporting a program called Little Steps, Big Impact. Little Steps, Big Impact is about ground level ozone, smog. Once again, OPPD is the largest contributor. And it costs, what they're trying to do is to get everybody to reduce their hazardous air pollutants that lead to smog. Because why? Because it costs a lot less to avoid a regulation than it does to comply with the regulation. Compliance alone costs a lot of money. If we hit that threshold, and we hit that regulatory threshold and have to move into compliance, it's not just us, it's everybody. Every gas station island, not every pump, but every island would cost $25,000 more to refit it with those vapor capturing nozzles that you've seen in some states. Body shops would have to pay more. Manufacturers, people that have solvents would have to pay more. And guess what? Those printers that print our political flyers, they would have to pay more too. And that would be bad. Okay? But OPPD is the one who's the major contributor to that problem.
May I interject one thing? Just to fact check. Back in 2016 or 15, did we do the resource planning?
14.
14.
Well,
we voted to close down North Omaha 1, 2, and 3 coal plants. And we voted that in 2023, we're closing down North Omaha 4 and 5. As far as that.
So I appreciate that the board has taken a stand on that. Mm-hmm. I struggle that we don't take ownership when we talk about the environment. And so to that end,
take ownership. I disagree. I agree to we can agree to disagree there.
Well, thank you. For me, words matter. We've heard this phrase a lot. Measures give matters meaning, right? You got to show me. You got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
We closed down 3 plants and going to close down 2 more.
And we have to trust but verify. Our SD7 does not have a measure of carbon emissions or any kind of measure on our other regulated pollutants, how we want to reduce those. Okay, so I would move that we amend SD7. There's a bullet in there.
Do you have a?
I'm going to pull up the bullet that exists, and then, here, I'll just use mix. So I'm suggesting that we amend bullet 1, 2, 3 that starts off, pursue a long-term goal of 20% reduction in carbon intensity. And that's the one I'm
Okay, go
trying to get Christie's, making sure she's catching it. Pursue a long-term goal of reducing carbon and other regulated emissions with a medium-term target of 20% reduction in carbon intensity. All the rest of it stays the same. That's what I propose we amend.
Okay, that's what you're moving.
I move that we amend it as I tried to state it, yeah.
Okay, Chrissy, are you clear on
Can
the?
you read it
Okay,
one more time?
go ahead.
Or if you have it, that'd be great. I just want to make sure.
If you, well, I'm not sure.
Regulated.
It's my handwriting, right? So it's that third bullet?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I need to see what it says. What did he say?
So that reads, pursue a long-term goal of reducing carbon and other regulated emissions
Yep.
with a medium term, and that would be air emissions. Sorry, I amended my amendment.
With the medium term.
Air emissions
And, okay, that's two.
with a medium term target of the rest of
Oh,
it.
you're doing that.
In the future, it would help if you would have had it written out for us.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It's not something we've been doing much of, so
Okay,
I
all right.
appreciate
Okay,
the
so
advice.
so you've made the motion to.
Have.
Okay, is there a second to the amendment to the resolution?
Yep, I'll second.
There is a motion and a second. Before we vote on the amendment, do any board members care to comment on the amendments only? Tim?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'd make it, this goes to the amendment or the whole policy. But anyway, I would say you oppose the amendment, first of all, and here's why. This is a board-driven strategic directive with input from senior managers on what's doable, what isn't, whatever the case may be. So I'm proud of that. I think it was a board-driven compromise, what we arrived at here, being on the committee. Took hundreds and hundreds of hours of our time, input, data, resources, and I do appreciate Director Yoder, your passion, and also Director Moody, your passion on these things. And but I think, you know, this is a compromise we should be proud of, not run from. I know there'll be others who say, well, have it 100%. Well, we weren't going to put any renewable number in there until we came back. We heard from the public, put a renewable number in there. And 50% was an attainable goal to get to. On the carbon decision, there's many discussions on the measurement. How would we measure that? Are we going to get better reporting? How would we do that? And I think if I'm wrong on any of this, any committee member can correct me, so we want more stringent requirements that you'll be able to look at and anyone else that we can look at. So when you look at all that, I think we've come up with what we have here is realistic and attainable goals based on our current assets, generation assets. Is it perfect? No, you're not going to vote for it either way, one with or without the amendment. We understand that because we've discussed this many times. But there's also another aspect to this, and you got to look at the rate structure, the reliability. And Director Booty, I appreciate your data on that, whatever, and I know we've shared that. But I think you were still around that 50% level of people who support this. But as a director, I look at you got to run it as a quasi-governmental, run it like a business, but it's a public entity, right? There are a lot of ratepayers or shareholders then who don't bring this up to me at all. They bring reliability, and some of those issues is very important to me. That doesn't mean that some of us who don't agree with everything you're saying that we're not environmental stewards by any means. And I know, but sometimes it comes across like no one else cares about the environmental stewardship in this company, and we do. And I think this board is leading the state in some parts in the country. So I'm proud of it too, Director Booty, of what we're doing. So with that, I think we've discussed this and discussed it, and we should stick to what we had as a compromise. And I'd encourage my other fellow board members to vote this amendment down and vote for the original compromise that we have.
Do any other directors who have not had a chance to comment care to comment on the amendment?
I just would like Mary Fisher one more time, because we've had this discussion multiple times. of why it is in the best interest at this time for the district to use the term intensity instead of emissions, as far as giving us more flexibility and as far as reliability.
Could we also add, Ann, Mary, could you talk about how we do measure some of these things too, if you can?
And that we do measure them. We have always gotten these yearly inputs anyway of the carbon intensity. We will have that. If you can explain some of that for us one more time, especially for the audience that are here, I think it'd be very helpful.
I gave it to Kristen. Sorry, I couldn't come up with it.
I appreciate the opportunity. It has been a long discussion, as many of you have indicated. But it's not just a long discussion, it's a necessary discussion. I have said repeatedly that I represent the production side of OPPD. That production side has definitely an environmental bent to it. We operate every day to the best of our ability, not just to meet the requirements that are out there. We do comply on a daily basis. We meet our regulations on a daily basis, but we also do better than our regulations on a daily basis. I talked at the board meeting where we went through the monitoring report for SD7, and I pointed out that we have units, our coal-fired powered units, are now, at least one of them, NC2, is determined to be, by EPA standards, a low emitter, has attained the low emitter status. Our other unit at Nebraska City has achieved that 11 out of 12 quarters. We have to show that over a 12-quarter period, we test quarterly for 12 quarters, that it is indeed in low emitting status. It is 1 quarter away from achieving that status as well. Our North Omaha units are well on their way to being low emitter statuses as well. Our folks work very hard. My team works very hard every day to make sure that we do understand the environmental impact that we have. Carbon is a byproduct of what we do every day. And we as a company, know that, and we understand that. We also provide a lot of opportunity to our customer owners to do things like come into a lighted room. The benefits of having electricity and electrifying the United States was recognized a long time ago, and is still recognized as one of the leading things that developing countries will do for their populations. With the good comes some of the bad, and we have to accept that. We are given directives by the board of directors, 15 directives, by the way. We balance on a daily basis how we do this. So every day we are looking at how our plants are being put into the marketplace. How do we serve our load? I have no option. I am by law required to meet all of my load. And so I produce on a daily basis enough electricity to make sure that you have the electricity to go in and cook your dinner, turn on your lights, have your kids do your homework, have a warm, comfortable home in the evening when you go home. My folks work 24/7, 365. We have people at that power plant. Rain, shine, heat, cold. They're there day in and day out. They do phenomenal work. They are very cognizant of the fact that not only do I have to balance what the cost is, how we play in the marketplace, how we put into the marketplace, what revenue we bring in for the company so that we can do some of the other things that we do as a company. We also are very committed to ensuring that we meet our reliability standards so that we do have electricity on a daily basis. Our folks just do tremendous work. Carbon is a byproduct of that. Carbon intensity gives us the ability to understand how it is we can produce carbon and still meet our load. It brings those two things together for us. And in a world where our load is growing, if we can keep our carbon at the same rate and increase our load and still meet the requirements that I have to produce enough electricity so that everybody can go home to a nice, comfortable environment in the evening, then we are doing our work. And we are doing the work to the best of our ability to make sure that we do meet the environmental stewardship. We look at all of the things that we can do, whether it's recycling, whether it's reduction in some of the other pollutants that we emit as part of producing our electricity. We also, as a company, have taken on renewables, something that we were a leader in and continue to be a leader in. 40% at the end of next year is a tremendous stride. And we are looking to see how much more we can do. Carbon intensity also gives us the ability to take advantage of bringing those renewables on and still balancing the system, bringing the reliability of the system that's required for us to be able to meet that load on a daily basis. So I understand that there are board of directors here, and I think everybody that lives or breathes in the United States feels the same way. We should do everything we can to protect our environment. And we do that on a daily basis in this company. We will continue to do that, regardless of what SD7 says, because that is the way that we operate the company. So carbon intensity to me provides an opportunity for my folks to feel really good about what they're doing every day. It also gives them the opportunity to show that they are environmental stewards and that they should be proud of the work that they do at OPPD.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Does anyone else who hasn't had an opportunity to comment, Mark?
Yeah, I just have a short comment. My heartburn with this amendment is that it's vague. It just refers to other regulated emissions. It doesn't enumerate them, and I think that makes it a moving target. And I can't support that. That just makes sense to me.
Thank you.
I appreciate the work that management, the board, and the public has, and the input the public has provided into this strategic directive. And after weighing all the input and taking everything into consideration, I will support the original resolution, consequently oppose the amendment. Okay, right. Do we have any other comments on the amendment before we?
One real quick comment, just on the amendment.
Over there.
I quite honestly, I think the amendment essentially is accurately reflecting everything that Mary just said and the perspectives of management and the board, which is to say pursue a long-term goal of reducing carbon and other regulated air emissions. I understand Director Trinan's concern, and it calls 20% by 2030 medium term. So really what we're talking about is a high-level directional goal to reduce carbon emissions. I think that's consistent with what there is consensus around anyway, which is why I support it, and I think it makes sense.
Thank you. Okay, Tom? Yes.
You know, I just want to say something. OPPD has made great strides, and there's great strides to still do with renewable energy and cleaning up the environment and the amount of carbon it puts into the atmosphere. They've gone from 10% in 2010 to 33%. Next year, in 2020, they'll be 40%. We're close to 50%, and they're working hard. It takes technology, and you just can't take $1 billion corporation and turn it on a dime and expect things to happen. It's not a dream world. It's a business that creates electricity, and it tries to create affordable rates. Just to put it in comparison against Nebraska Public Power District, which serves the majority of the state, they're hoping to be 10% renewable by 2020. So OPPD is steps ahead, and that was at the Wind and Solar Convention. They were touting that goal. So OPPD is doing a great job. There's a lot more to do. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. I don't think I've spoken to the amendment yet.
We have to.
You made the amendment. You had your input.
No, you get to speak to your amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Short. Okay.
Very short. So I just want to say I'm very proud of what everybody's doing at OPPD as well. I think they're doing a great job. I don't think I've suggested anything they can't do. As a matter of fact, I have such confidence in what you've done so far that this is why I supported the raises in pay, is that you can meet this challenge. You deserve that money if you can make this happen. That's why that happened.
Thank you. Christie, there is no public input on the amendment. There will be on the original resolution as a whole in its final status. Okay, Christie?
Yep. Barrett?
No.
Kavanaugh,
No.
Gay,
No.
McGuire,
No.
Mines,
No.
Moody,
Yes.
Trinan,
No.
Yoder,
Yes.
motion, amendment failed.
Okay, we go back to the resolution in its initial form. I presume everyone's comments still apply. Is there anyone cares to add that hasn't been stated already? Okay, seeing no one, is there any members of the public who care to comment on this? Before we start here, can I see a show of hands? How many members of the public wish to comment on this item? Okay, we have quite a few. Let's try to keep the comments as brief as possible. And if you represent a group, you can go ahead and go up there and recognize your group.
Come together.
Yeah, if you want, that's
Come
fine.
together as, you can all stand together, and then you don't have to all speak at the same time.
Or the other thing, if you're repeating the same thing that the person ahead of you said, I don't know if you have to say that. So,
Just say kudos.
unless you want to say your name and your address.
Works for us.
Go ahead.
Vern Tran, 49 Chicago. I really think you should just table it and allow the new members, because 68,000 people voted for renewable energy in this last election, and their voices are not being heard. The excuses are that, well, these people really worked on it really hard, and, and 50% is really hard, and it's no walk in the park. That sounds like institutional bias by your management. These are comments that your management has made to you. So they haven't been very enthusiastic about it. They've just been, well, it's not a walk in the park. It's too hard. It's just, versus going, okay, how do we do it? How do we do it? Much more optimistic, And plus, you are somebody who's being recognized in the activist community. And I'm just going to read this to you. I just got it. So a friend of mine in Arizona was working on Prop 127, and he said, curiously, they brought up OPPD and their renewable energy plan, and they were lauding about how progressive it was. So you're putting out dreams for the future. So you could put out 100% renewable by 2060. You had plans for nuclear power plants for 2060. So you can make plans that far ahead. And you can put out big goals and big dreams, going to the moon in 10 years or whatever. And we can do it. These kids behind me are going to tell you they can. So just put out the big dreams and don't be scared. And what would be so scared about 100% renewable energy? What would be so bad if you didn't make it? Oh my God, you didn't make it. Who would come and yell at you? Me? It's a few of these kids? That's all. So just go ahead and do it. Embrace 100% renewable energy, 0% carbon, 2060. Get with it. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Sabina Eastman and Blythe Peterson, Central High School. We're here today on behalf of the Omaha Students Union, a collective group of college and high school students from all across the metro area. The choices you're making today are incredibly significant to the future of our city. Climate change is the #1 moral issue facing my generation today. 2 of my friends' homes burned down this past week in the California wildfires, a direct result of climate change. We do not have time to wait. We need to take action now, and this resolution is simply not doing enough to move towards zero carbon emissions and 100% renewable energy. Big issues have never been solved with small solutions. We need bold, progressive, pragmatic solutions, because that is the only way to truly salvage our environment and in turn a sustainable world that we would like to be able to safely grow up in. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Hazel Taylor, and I'm from Creighton University. Don't know my address yet, sorry. Nature is not going to compromise with us. We have until 2030 to be on 100% renewable energy before our carbon budget is going to be used up. We don't have time to wait on this. We don't have till 2060. This does not do enough towards renewable energy. We need 100% by 2030. And I get that you guys are an energy company and that you do produce carbon when you make that energy. But it's been proven that renewable resources will create way more jobs, and they will obviously reduce our carbon. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Steph Zilke. I live at 315 North 34th Street, and I'm a student at Creighton University studying sustainability and sustainable energy science. So this issue is something that's really near and dear to my heart, because it's one thing to be an energy student and learn about all the great technology that we have available. We have windmills, we have solar panels, we have all this, and you're aware of it. But it's another thing to learn about the state that our planet is in. And I think the report from IPPC really startled me into, I need to be one to take action. And I don't think anyone here is going to be able to not take action once they learn the facts. I think this is something that's really pressing to our generation, future generations, your kids and everything. So I think I really want to urge you to echo the people who have talked before me, really turn renewable 100%. I know that's hard, but at the same time, if we continue to run business like usual, that's just not going to be suitable for human life. 80% of carbon, or 80% of fossil fuels need to stay in the ground. Otherwise, that means that by 2050, we won't be creating an atmosphere that's able for students and just humans to live. So I think that's something that needs to be really taken into consideration when talking about 100% renewable or even pushing for renewables, because this is something that I don't have the power by myself to fix and to change. And so I'm hoping that my voice here will really reach you and really be able to communicate how stressed I am about this issue, and that you guys are in a position of power and that you need to use that power for the good and to echo the voices of the students here and also the future generations to come.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Evan Geishart. I am also a sustainability student at Creighton University. I'm not just here for a class, I'm here just out of my own interest, and so are most of these students as well. I would really like to thank Mr. Moody and Mr. Yoder for really just kind of echoing what the people in the Omaha community want and what younger people actually want to see done with OPPD. I want to make a comment also too on the intensity. When I hear intensity and then I hear that it gives us flexibility, that really is just a term to me saying that we can emit more. I mean, that is just basically saying that you want to run business as usual while slowly adding renewable energy to this. And as said before, the IPCC report says that we have to shut off all carbon emissions in the next 10 years just for your kids, your grandchildren to have a livable planet, to have one where they're not, you know, looking for water for their next meal. I mean, this is no small issue, and I understand that you guys have to run a business, but I mean, it definitely seems like a lot of you are still having a hard time coming to grasp with the fact that OPPD is the one that is contributing to this issue. And then, I mean, if you look at it too, I mean, you probably have kids, you probably have grandchildren. I mean, the next time your kid is diagnosed with asthma, I mean, are you going to say that I'm proud that the carbon came out of my work because it's just, this is just what it is. This is just what we have to do to put on the lights. I mean, this is an issue that you guys have the power to solve, and I see some of you smiling and laughing, but I mean, this is a huge issue. I mean, we have to deal with this, and you guys are the ones that have the power, and I'd really, really, really urge you to not even look at 2060 as the target year. You guys need to be moving towards change as soon as possible. So thank you again for letting me talk. I appreciate this. I hope my voice is actually heard. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan DeLeo. My address is 5817 South 176th Street. Last month, as people have talked about, the Nobel Prize-winning Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change confirmed that humans have warmed the planet 1 degree since the Industrial Revolution. They also warned that another ½ degree of warming risks triggering widespread, potentially irreversible global drought, glacial melt, and sea level rise that would likely produce catastrophic food insecurity, population displacement, and public health crises. As with most ecological issues, the IPCC notes that the poor and the marginalized are most vulnerable to the effects of global climate change. Under current greenhouse gas pollution trends, the IPCC estimates that our planet will cross the 1.5 threshold in 2030, 12 years from now. To avoid 1.5 degrees of warming, the IPCC calculates that, quote, global net anthropogenic CO2 emissions must decline by about 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, reaching net zero around 2050. Since the report's publication, several leading scientists have warned that the IPCC's report actually underestimates the threat of runaway climate change, since it fails to adequately incorporate significant positive feedback loops into its models. In any event, the report called for rapid, far-reaching, and unprecedented changes in all aspects of society, and underscores the urgent need for science-based climate policies guided by more than short-term economic interests and instrumental reasoning. As a university professor with a PhD in ethics, I echo the teachings of St. John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, Pope Francis, and many other people of faith and goodwill who recognize climate change as a moral issue because it violates human life and dignity, especially of the poor and vulnerable, and compromises the common good. I also affirm the teaching of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops that prudence, understood as right reason applied to action, requires science-based energy policies. OPPD's carbon pollution reduction goals are commendable, and I certainly appreciate the work of OPPD and the delicacy of these conversations. Since the reduction targets in this proposal, this resolution, as well as President Obama's, fall well short of what the world's top scientists say is necessary to avoid runaway climate change, however, it does not constitute right reason applied to action and is thus by definition imprudent. Since the consequences of climate change that this policy would knowingly permit and exacerbate, both in Nebraska and around the world, it also fails to satisfy several widely accepted ethical standards. As an OPPD customer and global citizen, I therefore ask that OPPD make the conscientious choice
30 seconds.
to revise the carbon pollution reduction targets of Resolution 6289 to be consistent with what both science and ethics require. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Garrett Fox. I live at 1524 Cumming Street, and I have a general statement of passion. I am a senior studying environmental science at Creighton University. In pursuit of these studies, I have spent hundreds of hours reading about, reviewing, and discussing literature on the environment, and most specifically, on climate change. The literature I have read comes from peer-reviewed, reputable sources, from some of the most respected scientists and economists, from the leaders of 181 countries. All of them have the same message. Climate change is an imminent and existential threat to our world. Now, to some, my education may appear to have biased me. I will concede that point. But the question that I pose to you is, what if they're right? What if these models and studies and research are all correct? Here's some of what they predict. Increased flooding, indefinite droughts, stronger and harsher storms, incursions of cities, infertility of farmland, starvation, climate migrants numbering in the millions. In short, it means the greatest existential threat that our world has ever faced. This future, undoubtedly, would pose some serious problems to the citizens of Omaha. My studies have given me knowledge of these problems, and it is a knowledge that weighs on me every day. Part of this weight stems from thoughts of the future, thoughts of what we and our children may be facing. But an even heavier burden lies in facing the responsibility that comes with my knowledge. If knowledge is power, and power requires responsibility, then I have a duty to act on what I have learned. Me being here today is an attempt to fulfill part of that responsibility. You are the leaders. You hold keys that most of us do not possess. With those keys, that power, you too have a responsibility to think critically about what your position is, to know the impacts of your decisions, and to act for the benefit of those who elected you, even if they themselves cannot see how.
30 seconds.
You are the shepherds, the keepers of the keys. For all our sakes, I implore you to vote for the resolution and to lead us to greener pastures. Thank you.
John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street, Omaha. I recognize this as a genuine dilemma for all the hardworking people in OPPD, where the immediate requirements of the company of providing people with affordable electricity are at odds with what we need for the future of the planet. And what we urgently need to bridge the gap is better technology that allows us to get off of carbon. I also think that Director Yoder's points about not just measuring carbon, but the other gases that are injurious to human health and particulate emissions are also important environmental factors. So what I would say, and also I would note that if production and demand are rising, you should be asking yourselves why and whether there are conservation measures that could be initiated that would help to ameliorate that, because it does go beyond carbon intensity. And this is one of the concerns about merely measuring carbon intensity. With that said, what I really want is for this utility to continue its excellent work and to dedicate its future as a public utility to being a leader in adopting renewable energy as fast as can feasibly be done, and to limit the environmental impact of the electricity that we all utilize and enjoy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry we didn't get it.
My name is Erin Kajihiro. I'm a student at Creighton University. So let me just start off with a few facts. So according to a study called Our Path to Sustainable Energy by 2030, published by Mark Jacobson, sustainable energy, or wind, water, and solar energy, as we all know, has the potential to power the U.S. by 3 times the demand that U.S. needs. And yet, as of 2009, November, when the study was published, we have been using less than 0.001%, less than 1,000th percentile of the sustainable energy's potential that we can use in the world. And we have the technology right now to do what we can to use that energy and to make use of it, and yet we're not. And we don't have the time to deal with it either. We have to act right now. And if we do not act now, as of our levels right now, in 2050 we will be experiencing a dust bowl in this very area of Nebraska. And we don't have the time to stall our actions. We have to act now, because the effects of climate change is not going to impact your generation. It's going to impact ours and our kids and grandchildren. And you are the ones that have the power to do that right now. And when I talk to my kids and grandchildren, I don't want to tell them that we did not take every step that we could have to prevent the effects of climate change on their generations. Thank you.
Richard Miller. I'm a professor in the Sustainabilities program at Creighton University. I publish widely on climate change and its implications for the human community. I've presented at UN conferences and have been widely engaged in this dialogue around the world. There's a few things I think that need to be understood. I mean, first I'd like to say that I do appreciate the incredible work and the dedication, the notion of a family and people retiring who've done so much, and I appreciate that. I don't want in any way diminish that. But as these young people have said, this is what we're facing, right? This is what we're facing. And there's a few facts that just need to be understood when we talk about this. Research on the lifetime of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. 50% of the carbon dioxide we put in the atmosphere today will be absorbed by the oceans and by the biosphere. The oceans become acidic in doing that and threatened. We're threatening marine life. We're threatening a mass extinction. 25% of those carbon dioxide emissions last in the atmosphere 1,000 years. 12% last 10,000 years. And 7% last anywhere from 100 to 400,000 years. The mean lifetime of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is, if you take the low number, 100,000 years, the mean lifetime for carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is 30 to 35,000 years. One of the major researchers, David Archer at the University of Chicago, Archer opens his book on this fact saying that we have to realize that this is rough, this extends to the lifetime of nuclear waste. I saw the great care and the great difficulty, I have some knowledge of that, of the great difficulty of dealing with the nuclear waste problem, which you all were deliberating upon before. We have to realize when we talk about putting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we are creating a waste that is almost forever. So that's a scientific fact that needs to be really meditated upon, the long tail of what we're doing. OPPD's mission—
30 seconds.
30 seconds? OPPD's mission is to, as I understand it, is you have to deliver the lowest cost electricity as a public power. But what is the cost? The cost is we haven't entered into this equation. What is the effect to these young people? What does it mean to turn the southwest of the United States, from western Nebraska to California and south, into a dust bowl for 1,000 years? In the 2030 timeframe, we lock that in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Ellen Townley. I live at 1840 North 101st Street. I want to echo what other students, young people, and professionals have said about their support for reducing carbon emissions and the urgent need that needs to be, the urgent attention that needs to be paid to what the IPCC is saying about the potential, or at our current rate, reaching irreversible climate change problems by 2030, which is 12 years. This is all within our lifetime. This is something we're all dealing with. This is our future. I can't stress that enough. But what you did mention is that you want your employees to feel good about what they're doing, and that you want us to feel good when we turn our lights on at home. But I can't feel good when I turn on my lights and I know that I might make it harder for someone in drought or someone dying of heat waves or someone, because I see that the carbon emissions that I put into the air through using the power that you supply me does contribute to the overall emissions and does contribute to climate change. Additionally, I think that there are positive solutions through renewables to improve the feeling that we are moving to a brighter future through clean energy that doesn't use carbon. Finally, I want to say that I think a realistic look at the future demands a goal of 100% renewable energy. So by saying that you don't think that's a realistic goal suggests to me that OPPD is not in touch with the current science, isn't in touch with what is going on internationally, isn't in touch with what's going on in our community. I think that it's incredibly important that we pay attention to the science as well as the needs of our community and do set high-reaching goals of 100% renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Scott Williams, S-C-O-T-T, Williams, 1139 South 93rd Avenue. I'm represented by Director Moody. I want to thank Director Moody and Director Yoder for showing particular leadership with respect to environmental responsibility. And I wanted to take part of my my comments and ask a couple of questions, if anybody in the front half of the room would be able to answer them.
We really don't take questions.
There are not questions.
If you want to testify on behalf of this resolution, that's fine.
Okay, then I'll ask open-ended questions where I expect no response. Or I'll phrase them as statements. I was unable in my perusal of OPPD.com or OPPDlistens.com to be able to find a measurement of the carbon emissions of OPPD this month. I have no concept of what that might have been in megatons of CO2 emissions, or if it is gigatons of CO2 emissions. I don't know what the number is, but I know that we certainly have the capacity within the expertise represented here
as well as the other thousands of employees of the district, to be able to know that information. And I think that a public power district has the responsibility to make that information available to the ratepayer owners who are represented here. And so I wonder where I could get those numbers. I do not understand the concept of carbon intensity. I am curious if it would be possible for carbon intensity measurements, as described in the current directive, to show an increase in overall carbon emissions while still meeting the strategic directive as written. It seems that that would be possible. I see 3 directors nodding, knowing that I'm not allowed to ask questions. I wonder if this metric, as described in this resolution, the amended SD7, using carbon intensity, would allow for carbon emissions to continue to increase at the district. If that be the case, I am concerned that that does not meet the threshold of environmental responsibility at the public power district. And those are my concerns. If we are not measuring what matters, if that information is not broadly and publicly available, and if we are not setting metrics that are useful in driving down the concern of carbon emissions, then it's possible that the recommendations for the changes to the strategic directive are not sufficient, are not assertive enough, progressive enough, are not forward-thinking enough, long-term planning enough, are not strategic enough to direct the employees, the management, and the staff of the district to be able to meet the responsibility of environmental stewardship. And I think that that consideration must be taken while evaluating whether this is sufficiently responsible with respect to environmental stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, geez. My name is, oh my goodness, off to a great start. My name is Rebecca Powers. I am also a student at Creighton. I'm not the best speaker, so bear with me, please, a little bit. We've heard a lot of information tonight. We've heard a lot of great opinions. We've heard a lot of great facts from both the students and members of the community and also the board members. You guys clearly are very well educated on these matters. You've clearly spent very long hours and very long nights studying these things and working your hardest to come to compromises. And sitting here as a student, I recognize that there are a lot of factors that come into play when discussing these policies. There are so much that goes on behind the scenes that we don't necessarily understand. And I recognize that. And, you know, we've heard a lot tonight that this is a complicated issue. And absolutely, there are many aspects to this issue. But I just want to say, as someone who's sitting here with my hands shaking a little bit, that to me and to every single student in this room, it's not complicated. It's not complicated that we are facing this horrible future. It's not complicated that there is so much that we need to still do. It's not complicated that, yes, we are trying our best, and yes, we're doing all we can do, but it's not all we need to do. It is not all we have to do in order for every single student in this room to have the wonderful opportunities that we are working towards. And so I would just beg and plead that you keep in mind that, yes, you are doing all you can do, but it's not complicated to those of us whose futures are on the line. And thank you for your hard work. And yeah.
Hello, I'm Megan Farrell, and I am a student at Creighton University, and I'm a nursing major, and in given time, I hope to be a labor and delivery nurse, which means that I will be given the honor of helping many mothers bring children into this world. And as someone from this current generation, I understand that climate change and global warming and all of this carbon emissions, it will affect us. And I want to say I appreciate your openness and desires to not hide information from the public. And it is with that in mind, I encourage you to consider that you can achieve 100% renewable energy, and I understand it seems like a very difficult task, but I feel the need to ask you to do this as what kind of nurse would I be bringing these children into the world if I don't speak up for them when they won't have time to speak up for themselves? So I guess, being the last person, I'll just say it one more time. Please, please consider looking towards making OPPD into a greater renewable energy source, even greater than it is today. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more comments, go to vote.
Barrett?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Gay?
Yes.
McGuire?
Yes.
Mines?
Yes.
Moody?
No.
Trinan?
Yes.
Yoder?
No.
Motion carried.
Okay, our next item would generally be the president's report. There won't be a report this month. Item number 15 is an opportunity for comment on other items of district business. Is there anyone here who would care to comment on any items that we have not addressed today?
Okay, this is about levelized cost of energy and levelized cost of storage, November 2018 report. I'm not going to read it to you like I normally do because I'm tired. But the basic output is the cost of generating energy for utility scale solar, photovoltaic, and onshore wind technologies continue to decline. The mean levelized cost of energy utility scale PV technologies is down 13% from last year and has declined almost 7% for wind. And then the latest cost storage analysis shows significant cost declines across most use cases and technologies, especially for shorter duration applications, such as peak time. Solar gives you that nice belly in the summer on the graph that you don't like very much, and it disrupts. So this report here really tells us to get a handle on that, and I hope you guys enjoy reading it, because I do, and I hope you do read these reports that I bring you, because they are up to date. These are November, and I know you don't have it yet. So there we go.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
John Pollock. The good news for us is that the weather will remain dry through Thanksgiving. At least the early part of the holiday weekend will be good traveling conditions. Don't know about the later part. The bad news is that the reason for that is that the high-pressure ridge, which is the same that they were dealing with on the West Coast for 7 years of drought, broke down for 1 year, is back. And all the weather models that have been showing that ridge breaking down and storms making it through to the middle of the country and giving the West Coast rain have been wrong so far. I visited my sister in California last weekend, and there are dozens of people dead from forest fires, but what it didn't get across to me until I was out there, the entire Central Valley of California, that's millions of people, it's filled with dense smoke. That high-pressure ridge is sitting there. There's no wind in the valley to move the smoke out, and it's getting worse by the day because the fires continue. People are wearing masks on the street, the way you might see in pictures of China or somewhere like that, because they need them. So, once again, what we're doing here has consequences. It's part of the necessary actions to get our emissions down as soon as possible, because we're already seeing the effects. Thank you.
All right, really quick before we wrap up, Steph, 315 North 34th Street. I just wanted to ask the board members to reevaluate the rate rider for the community solar project that they're looking at. I think that the $100 buy-in fee is really limiting to what consumers can be a part of this program, especially because consumers already have to pay an additional fee for the renewable energy. So only comment is to have board members maybe reevaluate that, maybe revise that to figure out if there's a better solution for this initial $100 buy-in. Maybe it can be over a long-term occurrence instead of just one payment up front. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're adjourned.
All right.